Is technology a threat to the restaurant business, or is it a door to a bright future?
It just makes it more complicated. And more complicated creates more opportunities for those people that get it right to be more successful. Those people that don't embrace the digital world are not going to be relevant. And so how do you stay relevant in the world? You just keep evolving, you keep getting better, you keep finding out what your customer really wants.
Awesome Inc. presents the Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame, a show that highlights how people throughout the Commonwealth of Kentucky pursue their definition of awesome through entrepreneurship, technology, and innovation. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the final episode of Season 1 of the Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame podcast. And today we have a very special episode because this show is all about celebrating the success stories of Kentucky's most successful entrepreneurs. And that's actually what Keith McMunn and I are going to do today. So Keith, I'm glad you're back. We have missed your voice thoroughly on the show.
Garrett, I'm so glad to be back. I was talking with Chase Fairchild recently about his podcast, and he was making me feel one-upped. So I feel like I have an opportunity to come back, compete against him, make our listeners forget all about him. That's my goal here today.
Fair enough. There is some Midtown rivalry here in Lexington, Kentucky. So again, with the Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame podcast, our mission is to raise awareness of the impact that entrepreneurship has made in the Commonwealth of Kentucky and encourage others to pursue similarly ambitious endeavors. That's a lot of big words, but we want people to feel empowered and believed in that they can start something crazy. And so anyways, earlier this past month, we had a really cool opportunity to go down to Tampa, Florida.
Tampa Bay.
And visit one of the members from the 2014 class of the Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame.
And if you even clicked on the podcast here today, you probably know who it is. But one of the hints, if you didn't see that name already, is you have absolutely eaten at one of his restaurants. Isn't that right?
I did actually the weekend before we went and visited him. I had it Saturday afternoon in Bowling Green, Kentucky.
Bowling Green, Kentucky. That restaurant is Outback Steakhouse.
Yeah, that's right, Keith. So Chris Sullivan was a graduate from the University of Kentucky in 1972. And actually his restaurant career industry began while he was in college. So he would go down to Florida and work in Fort Lauderdale to pay for classes. And after working during the big seasons in Fort Lauderdale, he heard about Steak and Ale, and that's where he got started, and then went on to do things with Benningans and was almost in a really cool deal with getting Chili's in some of the southeastern states. But he went on to co-found Outback Steakhouse with some solid friends of his. And then now, Keith, this is what you're going to talk about, but now he is doing big things with Metro Diner and working with Omnivore, which is a platform that, if I get this correct, is a better way for restaurants and tech people to connect.
Connecting all of their point of sale apps and technology. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, Keith, why don't you give us a little background on what we did in our trip before we go on to hear you guys' time together?
As you remember, you were part of the trip. We went down to Tampa Bay to visit Chris in his office, and it was an exciting flight, if you recall.
I remember. I've never been stuck in the air that long.
Yeah, we had to circle around Tampa Bay for a good 45 minutes to an hour because of lightning in the area, which apparently is fitting for Tampa Bay. We land, and we immediately get into our rental car, and we had lined up a meeting with Tampa Bay Wave, which is a cool accelerator program in Tampa Bay. Actually very similar to what Awesome Inc. does in Lexington. So we had a chance to tour their space, learn from a couple of their directors before we looked out the window and noticed that it started downpouring rain.
Absolute monsoon. It was bad.
And this is important to note because we are wearing our khaki pants and all of our dress clothes that we had been wearing all day for our meeting with Chris Sullivan, kind of our big moment where we want to interview Chris and impress him. So we look out the mirror, it's downpouring. We don't have umbrellas. We parked our car a good 4 blocks down the street. And we had no choice. I mean, the clock was ticking. We had to get to Chris's office in time. This meeting was over a year in the making. So we run outside. We get completely drenched to the point that our clothes just looked like a darker shade of the color that they actually were. And so we headed over to Chris's office. We check in, we talk with his personal executive assistant, Ava. Ava, if you're listening to this, we are so grateful for you. You're the real all-star in that office. We sit down, we get all set up. Chris walks in, says, "Hey guys, great to see you. I know we agreed on an hour, but I've only actually got 40 minutes, and that's because I've got an off-site meeting. So let's get rolling." And so we jumped into business. We got right to it. And I had the absolute pleasure to interview Chris about a lot of his the life lessons that he's learned through business and his entrepreneurial endeavors. So I hope you enjoy. He's got some incredible wisdom, and I think you'll find that soon. So take a listen. All right, well, Chris, we had the pleasure of sitting down with you a few years ago to record your Founders Series video. And in that video, you shared with us a lot of the wisdom that you probably learned by making lots of mistakes, but also by making lots of great decisions as an entrepreneur, particularly with Outback Steakhouse. But now today we have the opportunity to catch up with you and to learn a little bit about what you're up to these days. But do you mind if I ask you a few questions kind of regarding some of maybe even more in hindsight, if hindsight is 2020, maybe a little bit more about the wisdom that you gained from your experiences with Outback Steakhouse a few years ago. You tend to credit a lot of your success to building the right team. Would you mind speaking to that? How do you build the right team? How do you know you've got the right team when you've got a few people around the table?
Well, fortunately, I had a lot of great mentors. And one of the things that over my time at other companies, that was the key to really being successful out there. And I learned that from Norman Brinker, who was a founder of Steak and Ale and Benningans and eventually Brinker International. And Norman really got the deal that you had to put these great people together. And the other thing he taught us is don't be afraid of young people. Young people have different ways of looking at things. They have energy. One of the great things about the restaurant industry, the staffs never really get old. So it keeps older guys like me young and young thinking. So putting together the right team of people really was critical to our success. But that's critical to any team's success. I think all of us know those businesses that have done really well. When you find out what happened, it wasn't one person's idea. It was just a lot of people getting together and doing great things. When companies fail, it's really the lack of recognition. You don't have the right people, the right players, the right teams. Just like sports, just like anything else, a rock band. You get the wrong player in there, everything can go bad. And that happens in business too often, especially in entrepreneurial ventures. And so identifying that you have the need to have great people and find people that have strengths different than yours and let them do what they do and do best and give them the freedom and the autonomy to do it, to me, is critical to the success of any enterprise.
Mm-hmm. That's good. I think at one point in your chapter of Unbridled Spirit, the book that we wrote about all the most successful entrepreneurs from Kentucky, I believe that you mentioned that raising capital is one of the hardest things or the biggest challenges that an entrepreneur is ever going to face. Do you have anything that you can share as an encouragement to entrepreneurs that are seeking capital?
I think that's changed dramatically. I think that there's so many people now, there's so much private money out there today looking for places to put it. And there's so much more capital in places all over the country. It used to be in New York and California, but now it's really all over the place. There's successful entrepreneurs, successful people that have made millions and millions of dollars that are reinvesting it because they love the game. They love playing in it. And I'm one of those. I think it's wonderful. And so raising capital is still a challenge. Doing a startup is a big challenge, and I think what you guys are doing with Awesome Inc. is a great catalyst, and those are around in other parts of the country as well, where these places spout out. They get out there and they really give people a roadmap of what it takes. They make some introductions. We have one here in Tampa that's doing well. So. It's a lot different game, I think, than it used to be. And it's a much broader audience that's willing to listen and willing to participate. You still have to have a great idea. You have to have a solid thought process of what it's about. And hopefully you're not just asking for angel investing all the time, because that's the hardest money to raise. Mm-hmm.
You also mentioned that one of the biggest challenges that a founder is going to face is focusing on what matters and staying alert on the most important things right in front of them. We live in an information age right now where we have plenty of information. The challenge is to whittle down what's actually trustworthy or going to benefit me or my company. Do you have any anything that you'd like to share about staying focused or keeping your eye on the prize?
Well, staying focused is a challenge, especially in my golf game, things like that. Focus, there are so many distractions. And when you have so many distractions, focus is there. So, I think that I put my phone down when I'm driving to the office, and sometimes I listen to music, sometimes I don't. I don't listen to the news. I basically am trying to get my mind right about starting the workday and thinking about things I have to do. In the mornings, the first hour every day is mine, and I go walk and I think, and if there's anything bothering me, I focus on that to get that out of my mind or to have to deal with it first thing. And I think focus is a big part of it. And when you see organizations that are wobbling or they're not finding their way, a lot of it has to do with just the focus of the people working in the business and keeping people focused on really what the task at hand is and really making sure they achieve those every week or every day they're supposed to. You have to do that. And there's tools out there to help people do that. But more than anything, you want people that want to do that without somebody looking over their shoulder telling them you're not doing that exactly right. So focus is a big, big deal. And it's a much bigger deal than ever before because there's so many distractions.
Let's trail back real quickly to the conversation about mentorship. If I'm new to a city, here I am in Tampa Bay for the first time in my life, actually. And if I'm a startup founder and I move here because I like the resources here, the community here, what do I look for in a mentor locally, or what do you think is important to seek out in a mentor?
Tampa, as an example, I think is almost a Midwestern city that's located in Florida. And people are very open here and very friendly here. And I think in general, there's a lot of communities that people are open and they want growth. They want people to come into their communities and become part of it. So there's always organizations that are out there, and you just have to be smart enough to figure out where you need to go connect with those people. And they're there. You just have to take your time. And it might be a Chamber of Commerce, event. It might be whatever. I mean, there's so many different organizations now trying to get people together to network. And there's a lot of networking events that go on. So it's not difficult to do that. It's just being patient and making sure you make a good choice on who you decide to let mentor you, and really think that through. Mm-hmm. And know that mentoring is you change from time to time. You get the best of somebody, take what you really like, and then you find somebody else to get you to the next level of information or advice, whatever. It never stops.
So it's okay to graduate mentors of sorts. Sure. It's okay or appropriate to kind of move on to.
I used to say you fire your mentor. You don't really fire them, but you move on, and you don't quit them. You don't stop the relationship. It's just it moves to a different level, and the people I had as mentors, I stayed close to for a long, long time. And I still am close to the ones that are still alive. They were all older than I am, and now I'm old. So, it's all great. But it helped me so much. And I encourage people all the time to find those mentors.
Right. Well, that's good. One of the, I think, popular parts of your chapter in the book Unbridled Spirit is a part where you mention that business is creating success through people. What does that mean?
Well, it's all about people. Products are produced by people, right? I mean, it's every part of the game we play in this capitalistic system is about people. People develop technology. People, create drugs. People create ideas like restaurants. It's all about people. And if you put people first, you have a chance to really be successful. And that's just been our philosophy for a long time. Again, Norman Brinker is one of those people that taught me about the whole importance of people. Stephen Covey was an amazing mentor of a lot of ours that Norman brought to us back in our days at Steak and Ale. And I have a file of notes on my meetings with Stephen Covey before he wrote his first book. And the win-win solutions, the win-win approach to business and people is really, really critical. It's the most important lesson I think I learned. And so creating those win-win relationships is very, very important. And it's served us so well.
Yeah, we're sitting in a conference room right now where I noticed before you joined us is that there are hundreds of faces of people around the country that you're impacting through business.
Yeah.
So it's fun to kind of see this as you talk about it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Outback Steakhouse tends to come up most often when people probably talk to you. What are you working on now? What's current?
Well, I'm still in the restaurant business. We have a new company that we started in 2014, and we have a concept called Metro Diner. We have 2 open in Louisville, and or 1 open in Louisville, a couple up in Indy. We're coming to Lexington, et cetera. But it's a very casual, comfort food place that got developed in Jacksonville, Florida a long time ago. And a young guy actually started his career in the kitchen at Outback, went to culinary school. He bought it, and it became Guy Fieri from Dive-In's, D3 declared it the best meatloaf in America, and that was before our time with it. But it reminds me so much of when we opened Outback, and we go walk and do table visits, and customers just look up and smile and say, "This is so great! I love this. How do you give us this much food for this amount of money?" And that's Metro Diner. It has those same attributes, and very, very passionate followers, and we got great people working in the diner. So I'm doing that. I'm also in the software business, and we have a very successful product called Omnivore IO.io. It's a platform that allows the point of sale systems around the country to integrate with the apps, and so without the apps having to write to the point of sale system. So as an example, OpenTable, which everybody knows, OpenTable, a very successful app. Or if you're doing OpenTable, you have to have an iPad or some device that has their software on it for you to run your business. Well, now if you're doing delivery and you're using 2 delivery deals, there's a couple more iPads, right? What Omnivore allows the operator to do is integrate those into the point of sale system, so there's not somebody having to watch that. Now somebody has to manage the OpenTable and all that, but it allows OpenTable not to have to write and service and support all these different point of sale systems, and it allows the point of sale systems not to have to worry about all these apps that want to run on their platform. So we have a marketplace of about 200 apps that can run into the hospitality industry. We cover everything from payments to loyalty to payment, et cetera. So it's a new digital restaurant world we're living in. It's a transition that has to take place. So we started working on this stuff about 7 years ago, and it's really working well.
Is technology a threat to the restaurant business, or is it a door to a bright future?
It just makes it more complicated. And more complicated creates more opportunities for those people that get it right to be more successful. Those people that don't embrace the digital world are not going to be relevant. And so how do you stay relevant in the world? You just keep evolving, you keep getting better, you keep finding out what your customer really wants. So it's complicated because you have my generation, the baby boom generation, that, we like technology, we use technology. Do we use it the same way millennials use it, or Gen Xers, or Zs? No, we don't. But everybody's using it, but some people, like they walk in a restaurant, they want to sit down, they want to be waited on. Other people want to order before they walk in the door, and when they sit down, food's brought to them. So it's a very complicated industry. This whole transition in all industries is complicated, whether it's retail, restaurants, medicine, whatever. It's complicated. But those people that figure it out and put the right resources in place and make the evolution are going to be really successful. So it's very bright.
Great. I love that. That's a great answer. And this is the Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame podcast that we are on here. As the final question, as kind of the sign off, what do you have to say to entrepreneurs or innovators in the state of Kentucky?
I think the state of Kentucky is a place that's moving forward, which is great. And I think that there's a lot of wonderful people there that have great ideas. There's capital in the state of Kentucky. All those people that have made it so big is great. And they're so generous, and so many people in the Hall of Fame that live up there that do so many great things for the state and people in the state. So I think that the state of Kentucky and entrepreneurship is alive and thriving. There's so many young people coming through that want to be entrepreneurs. They just need to find the right mentors to be entrepreneurs. Nobody does this alone. And I think the organization that you all have with Awesome Inc. and the Hall of Fame group that goes out there and communicates, they're doing a great service, and a lot of great things can happen in the state of Kentucky.
Great. Well, that's very encouraging, and I'm especially happy to hear that. Well, Chris, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on the podcast here. We really appreciate your time. It's so fun to catch up with you and learn a lot from you, so thank you.
Thanks, Keith.
Yep.
You got it, buddy. Good job.
All right, well, that's it. We want to say thank you again so much for checking out the Kentucky Entrepreneur Hall of Fame podcast. Special thanks to Lee Roseveare for the music that you hear in the show, and to Lexington's Awesome Inc. for hosting us from their space. Again, I'm Garrett Farbach. Make sure to check back and tune in next time. We'll see you then.